Hey everyone, so in the last video, reading AI generated horror content, user Chiester commented, "I'm so glad I found this channel. I love your sense of humor and this was a great video. The whole video idea and execution were 10 out of 10 and the editing is awesome." And honestly, thank you. That video, I feel, really severely underperformed. I can understand why people didn't want to watch it because it's AI generated horror content, or AI generated content in general is a much heated topic of discussion, but I feel like that's kind of undercutting that video. If you don't want to watch it, that's fine, that's cool. I hope you enjoy this one. But I thought that one was pretty good, honestly. It's mostly an experimentation of how AI, works when creating this kind of things, like programs through ChatGPT and other things like that. But anyway, if you want to get your comment featured on the next video, feel free to comment below. Thank you. So here's what happened. Whether it's at home or at work, I'm kind of always absorbing creepy content. At home, it's usually through film, TV, or even other YouTubers. While at work, it's mainly through podcasts, all in an effort to, obtain new ideas to make videos on. So picture this. I was happily scrolling through Instagram when I found a random reel in my feed about a supposed Skinwalker found in prison. Color me intrigued. While I can't remember who posted the reel, all I can tell you was that I was really fascinated by the story. Initially presented to me as a real case, my mind started going wild with theories about what was going on. And initially, I assumed the story to be one of those super bizarre real-life situations where there is no explanation to the events that occur in the story. I thought that the story presented to me was real, and assumed the person in prison was simply so deranged that they were carving up their fellow prisoners and wearing them as skin. And without doing any immediate research, I know my mistake there, I took to my Instagram a few video ideas and had them, you the people, vote for which of these 3 ideas they'd like to see. And the Skinwalker tale from Instagram took the cake. About a week later, I finally began my research for this particular tale, and was sorely disappointed. Incredibly so. I discovered that not only was the tale simply a creepypasta, but one that derived from Reddit no less. And no hate to Reddit, but as we all know, it isn't exactly the most reliable place to find true stories with absolute certainty. I was honestly truly stumped on what to do. Should I scrap this idea entirely? And ultimately, however, I decided that because everyone voted on this video, I would simply read the creepypasta and get on with my busy schedule. That said, it's an enjoyable tale nonetheless, so I hope you enjoy it as well. Let's get to it. I was in prison for 15 years. There was a Skinwalker in there with us. A little background first. I was serving a 15-year sentence in a penitentiary in southern Arizona. What I was in there for isn't very important. During my stay there were countless things that happened that no one could explain, and even more that no one wanted to know more about. It all started with a prison legend. Supposedly, years ago, something awful and unexplainable happened in the prison. Every morning, we woken up and expected to stand near the front of our cells while the guards visually confirmed we were present and accounted for. Apparently, about a year before I got sent there, the most brutal and unexplainable thing happened during one of these routines. A man who had a cell to himself looked very off during this check. When a guard pulled over another guard to help him check it out, they found it wasn't actually the prisoner they were expecting at all. It was a totally different man. This man was wearing the skin of the other man over him. Loosely fitting, draped over him, apparently looked like a real monster. The scariest thing though, was the guy wearing the skin was not an inmate. They had no idea how he even got into the prison, let alone a cell. What's worse, is that they couldn't even figure out who the hell he was. He wasn't documented anywhere, and what's worse than that, they never even found the body of the man of the skin he was wearing. Pretty grisly stuff, I know. And I realize that's not the go-to definition of a Skinwalker, but that's what the prison called him. The Skinwalker. Didn't help that the guy never talked, apparently. Anyway, that's what started the whole Skinwalker superstition around the yard. Apparently the guy got shipped to a different spot about a month after it happened, and just about everyone felt all the better for it. I heard about the story on the second day of my stay. Hell of a story to hear in your home for the foreseeable future. Now, onto the real shit though. Sure, that guy was the Skinwalker, but all he did in the long run was get an old lifer Navajo inmate to tell everyone about actual Skinwalkers. It seemed like a lot of prison culture actually revolved around them. Now apparently, Skinwalkers are tricky to point out on the spot, but if you manage to survive around one for more than a minute or two, almost everyone can tell their mannerisms are all off. They can mimic human speech, but not replicate it. They twitch manically. They have an unnatural gait while walking. But apparently, they got better with experience. The old Navajo guy, his name was Carl, said that he was sure there was an actual one among the prisoners, slowly picking us off over the years. He called it the Grand Master Skinwalker at one point. Apparently though, it had human mannerisms down so well that you might not even be able to tell if it was your cellmate for a day or two. It had to be good, he posited one night. He would expect the Skinwalker to jump at any opportunity for a kill. But this one realized it had a revolving door of people to kill coming to it, and masterfully bided its time, as Carl thought, for years anyway. A lot of guys found humor in it. A lot more were really on the edge about it. Every once in a while in prison, people snap. Sometimes you'll find your cellmate swinging in front of your bunk, strung up around the neck by his pant leg. Sometimes you just can't take it anymore. But in our yard, people tended to snap in a very special way. It wouldn't be an outburst at dinner, or a silent suicide in the night. Guys would just stop talking, hunch over, and shuffle around. Any friendships they had would be almost out of the window. They would turn into a loner during rec time. They would let their hair hang in front of their face. No one liked to talk about it. Like if they did, it would happen to them next. I felt the same way. I didn't know if it was a Skinwalker or just people going crazy, but I didn't want to find out. It wasn't clockwork or anything, but every time someone snapped in this way, it wasn't more than a couple of weeks before they were shipped off, or transferred to God knows where without anyone else knowing. Then there were the nighttime occurrences. Short, loud bursts of sound echoed through my cell block during all hours of the night on a regular basis. It sounded like a mix between a pig dying and nails on the chalkboard. Just another thing no one liked to talk about. Even scarier were the shadows and footsteps. The block was dimly illuminated in the night by a few lights hanging from the ceiling outside the cells. I myself saw shadows flit across my walls on a regular occasion when there were definitely no guards near my cell. One time, near the end of my sentence, I woke up, looked at my back wall, and found a perfect silhouette of a person standing there. But when I looked, my bunkmate was asleep, and no one was outside my cell. And the footsteps. Everyone hated the fucking footsteps. They were the scariest part. In the night, sometimes, more rarely than the shadows, you would hear ungodly fast footsteps. They sounded like wet feet slapping on tile floor. Whatever caused them would fly from one end of the block to the other in a dead sprint. Whatever it was inhumanely fast. If you happened to be awake before it started, by the time you heard the footsteps on one side of your cell, and whipped your head around to see the thing running by, it sounded like it was 3 cells past you. Everyone hated the footsteps. I agreed. I thought they were the worst. I was released from that place about a month ago, and I have more stories than I can count. I swear it was probably nearly my turn. About a week before I was discharged, my cellmate and a good friend of mine snapped. In the same kind of way. I didn't sleep for an entire week. Well, I did sleep of course, but never for more than a few minutes at a time. Never turned my back on the guy. The scariest thing, I woke up one night to him somehow snaking his body through the bars of our cell. For reference, I couldn't get anything past my shoulder through them. The worst part though, he was coming back to our cell. On the day of my release, I didn't say a word to him, just left. He seemed fine with it, so was I. I had made it through. 15 years of prison fights, gang disputes, and for all I know, a Skinwalker. I left through the front gates a free man. As I walked along the fence, from the rec yard, I spotted my cellmate, standing off on his own, like he had for the last week or so. I shook my head, not even really sure if it was him anymore. I took one last look over the yard, this time from the other side of the fence. I wish I hadn't. There, standing off on his own, on the other side of the yard, was Carl, slouched over, eyeing the other inmates, and twitching manically. Alright, so my overall thoughts on this particular story. Again, I was very disappointed to find out it wasn't some real story about a prisoner murderer or something to that extent. But that's fine. This one was, honestly, genuinely kind of creepy. I mean, I have a soft spot too of skinwalkers and that particular legend in general, because I find them honestly really fascinating. I honestly should really make a video on skinwalkers. I'm surprised I haven't actually done one. I think the closest I have is like a Wendigo. Even then, that's not particularly close. Other than that, skinwalkers and Wendigos, I think, are both Native American legends. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think I'm right. I don't know. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But as far as the legend goes, or I guess this particular creepypasta, it was fairly well written. It was kind of scary, not gonna lie. Or I don't know if scary is the right word, just overall unnerving. The ending was certainly, like, great. I think perhaps the most interesting thing about the story is that the Skinwalker was named Carl, which if you think about it in the context of the story, and the OP proposes that skinwalkers tend to adapt over time to try to seem more human-like. It's weird that it picked a name, or some people would probably think that it's weird that it picked a name like Carl, but maybe the Skinwalker chose it because it was it thought it was a very common name, so it wanted to seem more, normal, I guess. Which, if you think about it that way in the story, that's actually pretty clever. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. This one was a bit more of a fun video to kind of make on the side, because as it turns out, work got more busy. So I'm really sorry that I can't post as frequently as I would want to. I'm still trying to post once a week, despite some videos being particularly small or short rather, but I hope you can understand. Anyway, I hope the rest of your week is great. Have a good one.